What is going on, guys? My name is Zerax, and in this video I just want to do a little short but sweet Destiny 2 discussion video talking about the current form of the seasonal model right now. This is a very hot topic currently because Destiny right now is suffering from a larger than normal player drop count. Now, there's a lot of things that can go into why this is currently happening. I mean, Modern Warfare 2 dropped recently. We got God of War Ragnarok that is literally right around the corner. But a lot of people are pointing to the issue being the seasonal model. And I think that there's a lot that ties into the seasonal model being an issue, but as well as just the whole play loop of the game currently. So let's get right into that. Okay, so if you look at the way that the seasonal model works, if you've been a Destiny 2 player for a while now, at this point you probably already know exactly everything that we're gonna get for the new season, right? You know that you're gonna get a new set of weapons, you're gonna get like 3 new sets of armor, and one of those is gonna be tied to the season pass, one is gonna be tied to Eververse, and one's gonna be tied to the new raid or the new dungeon. And then with that, we might get a couple of new exotics, one tied to the season pass, one tied to the new raid or new dungeon, right? So we know we're going to get all that, but along with that, we also get a set of activities, right? We get, right, of course, like I said earlier, we get a new raid or we get a new dungeon. We get our story content, and then we get a 6-player match-made activity, and I think also a 3-man match-made activity. So that's what we get. So what's the issue? When you list all of that off, it sounds like a lot of content, right? Like, sounds like Bungie has got this down to a T and they got it figured out, right? But when you start to look more into that content, you start to see the cracks. So what are the cracks that we start to notice? Well, let's look at our 6-player match made activity, for example. We know we're going to get a new one every single season, right? And then you hop in and the area looks different and you're probably shooting a different enemy this time. But one thing you start to notice is that it starts to feel like the last 6-player match activity and the last one before that one and the one before that one too. And that's because the core objective and the way that the 6-player match made activity is played doesn't ever actually change, right? It looks different, but it's not different. It's just got a different coat of paint on it, right? So even though it's new, right, it still feels like you've already played it a million times before because the core of it doesn't ever actually change. And then you have your story content, which a lot of the time is brick walled by that 6-player match made activity that you don't want to play because you felt like you've already played it a million times before. And then you finally get to the story content, but then you only get 10-15 minutes of the story content before you're stuck waiting till next week to get more of it. And then you're just like, now what? And I understand why Bungie does it this way, why that story content is drip fed to you the way that it is over the span of the 3 months, because the alternative, right, would probably be just giving it to you all right at the start of the season, and then you'll just burn through it in the next 2 hours, and then for the rest of the next 3 months you have no story content because you went through all of it at the beginning of the season. And Bungie has suffered for a while over this, even back in the Destiny 1 days, because back with Destiny 1 they would drop the content and everybody would just eat it all up, right? And then it was gone, and then it would just feel like it was constantly suffering from a content drought, or would constantly feel like there was just never enough content in the game. So I understand why, on terms of the story content, it's drip fed out to you. So I personally will just say that I accept it the way that it is. I understand why they do it, so I'm not bothered by that. But what does this mean, right? This means when you look at all the new content that we're getting for the new season, it's not really new at all, right? Like, what is the new content we're getting? Because if you look at that 6-player or that 3-player match made activity, you already feel like you don't want to play that from the beginning because of the fact that you felt like you've played it a million times already, right? And let's be real, the only reason that you're hopping in there playing those 6-player or the 3-player match activities is because you want the new weapons or you want the new armor. That's the only reason. Like, are any of us actually hopping in there because we're finding it fun at this point? I don't think we are. We're just so used to doing the same thing over and over again. So, and we just want to get the weapons and we just want to get the armors. We're not doing it because we enjoy the activity. We're doing it because we want the weapons, right? Then you look at the 10-15 minutes of the new story content that you're going to get every week. Well, once you do that, well, that's it. You're done with that. And then that leaves you the raid and the dungeons. Well, I'm personally a solo player, and I know that there's a lot of players in the community that are solo players as well. So if the new season is a raid season, right, then, well, that already cuts you out of that content unless you're willing to go out and find a team to play with, right? But some of us just have time limitations where we don't get enough time to sit down and go through a raid that may take hours to do, right? Or you have family or whatever other things that cause issues for that. So that's another piece of that content that's pulled out. So then it's kind of like, all right, well, now it doesn't feel like there's any new seasonal content besides for those weapons and that armor. On terms of actual activities to play in the game, it doesn't feel like there's anything new. But I don't think that the only issues are with the seasonal model of the game. I think it also ties in with the core activities of Destiny as well. So I'm talking about the things like your strikes, your nightfalls, patrols on the planets, and then you have Crucible, PvP, right? This is stuff that has been neglected for the sake of the seasonal model, right? Bungie had kind of figured out a way where it feels like they can always have content at all times, and we applaud it, we loved it, we enjoyed it initially, right? But now it's like, because of that, Bungie said, okay, we're just gonna keep doing the same thing, and what we'll do is we'll tweak it a little bit every season, but it doesn't ever change. And because that's been their whole focus is to do that, the core playlist, the core activities of their game, like those strikes and Crucible, have been neglected. So that leads into the whole game feeling like it has just stagnated and nothing has changed at all. So let's break it down real quick. Let's look at strikes, for example. How long have we been asking for strike specific loot and we haven't gotten it, right? We got nightfalls for specific loot, but that's not the same as strike specific loot. Strike specific loot is loot inspired by the strike, right? And then let's look at Gambit. You can't forget about Gambit. We can't forget about it. I'll applaud Bungie. They put a lot of time into making the experience of Gambit better, but they don't support it, right? There's no new Gambit maps, and we haven't gotten any new Gambit maps in how long? And that ties into the next one, PvP, right? We've gotten 2 new maps for PvP in the past 2-3 years. That's insane. And one of those maps is a Destiny 1 map. On that note, did you notice that PvP wasn't mentioned a single time in that whole Lightfall reveal? Not once. I'm sitting there that whole time like, I'm so excited. I'm like, man, I'm loving all this, everything that I'm seeing, right? This looks great. And then, like, I, as a solo player, I spend a lot of my time in PvP. This is where the end game is for me, is in PvP. So I'm like, where's the PvP info? Like, that's what I'm waiting for. And the whole time we didn't get any of it. I don't even think Gambit was mentioned either. Shoot, putting that all in perspective, right? You look at all of that and how the core activities have been neglected, and you look at the seasonal model, right? And how stagnant that is. Why would anybody stay and play? Makes sense to me. I think that what Bungie needs to do is, I think they need to take a season or 2 or whatever it is that you need and fix those core activities. Like, we could look at the seasonal model later. I mean, it needs work, obviously. I think what they have there is good. I think that what they just need to do is they just need to put some variety into it. I think that's just what they need to do for the seasonal model. just put some variety into it. But I think they need to take a step back from that. And if you need to, Bungie, if you need to, take a season or two where your whole focus is on fixing the core activities of your game, getting strike specific loot, getting new strikes in there, getting new gambit maps, getting new PvP maps, and fixing those too. Because like, I'm not gonna sit here and list off every single issue that Gambit or Crucible or Strikes might have. You have forums dedicated to every single issue possible that anybody can come up with. But it's very true that there's become a huge stagnation within the game where nothing is changing. It just kind of seems like it all just gets worse, and then over time you just get tired of it, you just get bored of it. And that's where you got a lot of people where they say that it just feels like a chore to play Destiny at this point. So I really think that what Bungie needs to do is they need to just take a season or two to fix their game. But I can rant on forever, but I'm gonna cut it right here. Guys, let me know how do you feel about all this? What do you think that Bungie could do to make the experience better? Because I mean, we all love the game, right? We love Destiny. I love the lore behind the game and everything. I love the way it feels, the way it plays, but everything has just been, it just feels like everything doesn't change. It feels like it's been, yeah, you got stuff that's neglected, and it could be better. And I know that we all want what's best for the game in the end. That's the point, right? I mean, we all complain because we're very passionate about the game. That's why we complain about the game, right? Because if we weren't passionate, we would just go play something else. But as you can see from the player drop count, that players are starting to not care anymore. They're starting to be like, well, how long have we been asking for all of these things and Bungie just doesn't ever deliver, right? And people are just getting tired, right? So with that though, I will leave you guys to the rest of your day. I appreciate you for tuning in and listening to my little rant or my discussion here about the current seasonal model and the play loop essentially tied to Destiny right now. And I will leave you guys the rest of your day, and peace.